Before his passing, Deborah Kerr dropped a bombshell about Burt Lancaster that no one saw coming. Born Deborah Jane Trimmer on September 30th, 1921 in Helensburgh, Scotland, she carried herself with a kind of grace that couldn't be faked. Her charm wasn't just elegance, it was discipline, resilience, and pure respect for her craft. Those traits pushed her through a career that stretched over 5 incredible decades in film, theater, and television.
Do you want to check my hand?
Cool as a cucumber. How do you do it?
It's funny, because you checked it earlier before the show and found that it was as frigid as an iceberg.
I see. I see.
Now I'm all
Well,
right.
maybe it's warming up a bit.
I don't know what it is. I like this. I'm going to do this with all the lady guests.
Deborah's early life shaped the way she moved, spoke, and performed. After losing her father, a British Army officer, to wartime injuries, her mother stepped up, raising her with structure, education, and a quiet strength that stayed with her forever. Deborah threw herself into ballet at the famous Sadler's Wells Ballet School, training with fierce dedication. That's where she developed her sharp sense of posture and control. Every move had meaning. But life had a twist waiting for her. A leg injury shattered her dreams of becoming a professional dancer. Still, instead of breaking her spirit, it gave her power. The discipline of ballet became her secret weapon on screen, making every gesture count and every glance magnetic. Her poise wasn't just beauty, it was precision. Her acting journey began in British cinema in the early 1940s, but when she crossed over to Hollywood, everything changed. She didn't let the studio system box her in or define her by simple roles. Deborah had that rare mix, dignity and vulnerability, smarts and warmth, grace and emotional fire. Audiences could feel it. Beneath her polished exterior was a woman who could express storms of emotion without saying a word. Deborah Kerr built her name by playing women who weren't just strong, they were torn, complex, and deeply human. Her characters didn't crumble in chaos, they faced emotional crossroads with courage and quiet fire.
I had a feeling that was coming. That's a very, very sensitive subject, please. With the
Oh, is it?
Oh,
to,
yes,
to you,
yes.
to
Not
you,
to me
Wes?
personally, to us.
To the country.
Yes, to the country, yes.
That's right. There's a lot involved in that.
Oh, dear,
Was
yeah.
that as big a thing over there in the papers and all?
Yeah, oh,
were you there
yes.
at the time?
Yes, indeed.
The whole
yeah.
Howard
the
Hughes
whole,
thing.
The whole story.
Yeah.
One of her most unforgettable performances came in From Here to Eternity, 1953, where she brought to life Karen Holmes, a military officer's wife caught between loyalty and raw desire. That legendary beach scene with Burt Lancaster, it wasn't just about passion, it was electric because Kerr made it real. You could feel the heartbreak and tension in every wave that crashed around them. It became one of cinema's most iconic moments, not for its scandal, but for its emotional truth. That scene changed everything for her, shattering the proper English lady label and showing the world she had depth and daring. Through the 1950s, Kerr kept proving she was no one-role wonder. In The King and I, 1956, she played Anna Leotowins with a sharp mind, wit, and quiet defiance that balanced perfectly against Yul Brynner's commanding energy. Even though her singing was dubbed, her performance radiated authenticity. It was all her heart and presence on that screen. No wonder she earned one of her 6 Oscar nominations for it. Then came Heaven Knows Mr. Allison, 1957, where she transformed into a nun wrestling with faith, fear, and forbidden feelings.
Well, I suppose I prefer being, of course I prefer being Mrs. Peter Viertel, but I am Deborah Kerr, and there are, it's two and one together sort of thing, if you know what I mean.
But you don't feel slightly different when you're called the one. Do you respond a little differently if someone calls you Mrs. Viertel? Do you assume they?
No, I don't think so. Do you mean, do I get mad and say, I beg your pardon?
Kerr showed how powerful silence could be. Every look, every hesitation told a story. Her strength wasn't loud, it was moral, emotional, and real. That was her magic, showing that true power doesn't need to shout to be felt. Movies like Black Narcissus, 1947, Separate Tables, 1958, and The Innocents, 1961, gave Deborah Kerr the space to dive deep into the darker corners of the human mind. She didn't just act, she lived her characters. In The Innocents, her haunting performance as a governess losing her grip on reality remains one of the most chilling portrayals in film history. You could see every flicker of fear, every trace of doubt. It was pure cinematic brilliance. Even though she mastered the art of psychological drama and earned 6 Oscar nominations for Best Actress, Deborah Kerr never actually won. Can you believe that? Hollywood's own Academy missed one of the greatest talents of her time. Critics and fans still call it one of the biggest oversights in Oscar history. But in 1994, the world finally made it right. Deborah Kerr received an honorary Academy Award celebrating her breathtaking career and timeless influence on generations of actors. When she accepted that award, her grace shined brighter than ever. She spoke with such warmth and humility, the same quiet dignity that defined every moment of her life and career. Behind the spotlight, her personal life carried its own mix of romance, challenge, and unshakable strength. Her first marriage came right after World War II, when she married squadron leader Anthony Bartley of the Royal Air Force on November 29, 1945. At that time, Deborah was a rising star, known for her poise, intelligence, and that unforgettable screen glow. Bartley, a decorated war hero, seemed like the perfect match, the calm anchor for her fast-paced Hollywood world. Together, they built a family filled with love and hope, welcoming 2 daughters, Melanie Jane on December 27, 1947, and Francesca Ann on December 18, 1951. It looked like a dream life, but behind that picture-perfect image, the pressures of fame were quietly starting to stir. Motherhood wasn't just another chapter in Deborah Kerr's life, it was one of her most cherished roles. Even with the constant pull of Hollywood, endless travel, and long shooting schedules, she stayed deeply connected to her family. Her eldest daughter, Melanie, grew into a respected medical sociologist and later a retired academic, a reflection of her mother's sharp mind, discipline, and quiet determination. Francesca, on the other hand, inherited Kerr's creative spark, following a more artistic path, and eventually married the acclaimed actor John Shrapnel. Through Francesca, Deborah's legacy kept growing. She became a proud grandmother of 3 talented grandsons, Lex and Tom Shrapnel, who both carved out strong acting careers, and Joe Shrapnel, who made his name as a successful writer. It's incredible. Her influence didn't just stop at the screen. It flowed straight into her family, shaping a whole new generation of storytellers and artists. But behind the glow of that family success, her marriage to Anthony Bartley was falling apart. As her fame exploded across continents, the pressure on their relationship grew heavier. Reports say Bartley wrestled with feelings of jealousy and frustration, watching her wife's international stardom soar past his own achievements. That kind of imbalance slowly chipped away at the love they'd built after the war. And it didn't help that Kerr's career was relentless, film after film, flight after flight, always somewhere far from home. The emotional distance kept widening, and what began as a strong partnership turned into quiet heartbreak. By 1959, after years of trying to hold it together, their marriage finally ended. It was a painful break, but it also marked a powerful turning point for Deborah Kerr, a moment when she had to reclaim her life, her peace, and her strength. A whole new chapter opened for Deborah Kerr on July 23, 1960, when she married the brilliant author and screenwriter Peter Viertel. He wasn't just any man. Viertel moved with ease through the world of art and literature, mixing with writers, filmmakers, and thinkers that matched Kerr's own sophistication. Their marriage wasn't built on fame, it was built on shared creativity, mutual respect, and a deep understanding of each other's worlds. Through this union, Deborah became stepmother to Viertel's daughter, Christine Viertel, and she embraced that role with her signature warmth and quiet elegance. Together, Deborah and Peter built a life that many only dream of, peaceful, cultured, and far from the chaos of Hollywood. They split their time between Klosters, Switzerland, and Marbella, Spain, two places that reflected their love for privacy, beauty, and simple living. For years, life finally slowed down for her. Those days were filled with calm conversations, artistic companionship, and the kind of peace she'd earned after decades in the spotlight. But as time passed and her health began to fade, Deborah made one of the most heartfelt choices of her life. She returned to Britain, determined to be closer to her children. That decision said it all. Family was always her truest anchor. Even after decades of fame, glamour, and worldwide admiration, what mattered most to her was love and connection. And yet, while her later years were serene, the memory of her fiery on-screen chemistry with Burt Lancaster still lingered. Their partnership on screen wasn't just romantic, it was explosive, magnetic, and unforgettable. The world could feel it every time they shared the frame.
But behind all the studio glamour in those perfectly lit movie sets, Deborah Kerr later revealed a truth that left fans stunned. Working with Burt Lancaster wasn't the dreamy Hollywood fantasy people imagined. It was complicated, fiery, and at times overwhelming. In rare and brutally honest reflections later in her life, Kerr finally lifted the curtain on the man who had once shared those unforgettable scenes with her, and what she said shocked even his most devoted admirers. Deborah never denied Lancaster's incredible presence. How could she? Burt had a force about him that filled the room before he ever spoke, she once confessed. That magnetic power he carried didn't just stay on camera, it exploded onto the screen, especially in From Here to Eternity, where their forbidden love burned with raw emotion and became one of the most iconic moments in film history. But Kerr made it clear the same intensity audiences loved didn't fade when the camera stopped rolling. Lancaster lived like he acted, loud, passionate, and always on the edge. There was no half measure with Burt, she revealed. Emotionally, physically, creatively, he was all in all the time. That kind of energy thrilled directors and electrified co-stars, but it could also be exhausting. Kerr admitted there were moments she felt completely swept up, almost drowned by his unrelenting drive. She described him as a man who didn't just cross boundaries, he broke them for fun. And the most jaw-dropping confession of all, Burt believed rules were for other people, she said bluntly. He didn't think he was being difficult. He thought he was just being Burt. He truly believed he was just being honest. But Deborah Kerr revealed that Burt Lancaster's version of honesty could cut deep. His truth wasn't gentle. It was sharp, fierce, and sometimes brutal. She explained how he constantly pushed against authority, challenging directors, clashing with producers, and even questioning scripts right in the middle of production. He didn't care about keeping the peace, even if it meant risking his career. That defiance made him magnetic, but also unpredictable, a mix of courage and chaos that both impressed and unnerved everyone around him. Kerr didn't shy away from the rumors that swirled for decades about what really happened between them off-screen. Studios played games, fanning the gossip one day, denying it the next, but she finally set the record straight. People wanted us to be what we played, she said, her voice steady and certain. The truth, she insisted, was far more restrained. Yes, there was a powerful emotional bond, and yes, they shared undeniable chemistry, but she was clear, attraction doesn't always mean action. Respect kept their connection grounded, even when sparks were flying all around them. Then came the revelation that left listeners stunned, her insight into Lancaster's hidden battles. To the world, he looked fearless, invincible, larger than life, but Deborah saw beyond that screen image. Beneath all that bravado, she said, Burt carried anger with him. Not cruelty, but anger at limitation, at being told no, at realizing life wouldn't always bend to his will. That inner fire was what gave his performances their unmatched power, but it also burned him from the inside out.
Kerr spoke softly when remembering his later years, the man who had once relied on his physical strength, now forced to face its decline. That was the cruelest irony, she whispered. A man who trusted his body above all else had to watch it betray him. It broke something in him, and that truth haunted her long after the lights faded. Deborah Kerr believed that losing his physical strength hit Burt Lancaster harder than any box office failure ever could. It stripped away the very thing that defined him. His body had always been his armor, his power, his pride, and when that was gone, it was like watching a legend lose his reflection. But Kerr's revelations weren't meant to tear him down. In fact, her words carried deep respect and lingering sadness. He was not easy, she said with quiet conviction, but greatness rarely is. She gave Lancaster full credit for pushing her beyond her limits as an actress. He didn't let her stay comfortable. He demanded intensity, truth, and fire from every scene. Burt made you braver, she admitted, whether you wanted to be or not. That was the real shock behind her confession, not scandal, but humanity. Burt Lancaster wasn't a saint or a monster. He was a man, brilliant, flawed, and endlessly driven. His genius and his restlessness were two sides of the same coin, impossible to separate. Then came her final words about him, simple but unforgettable. "I would work with him again without hesitation," she said, "because even when he frightened you, he never bored you." That one line said it all. In a world where fame fades fast, Lancaster stood as someone who could still shake your soul just by walking into a room. Through Kerr's measured honesty, the Hollywood icon was stripped of myth and revealed something far rarer, a man both magnetic and maddening, unforgettable in every way. Deborah Kerr's own story came to a graceful close on October 26, 2007, when she passed away at 86. She died peacefully at her home in Boatsdale, a quiet village in Suffolk, England, a setting that perfectly mirrored the calm and dignity she had sought after a lifetime in the spotlight. Even in death, she remained what she had always been, elegant, strong, and unforgettable. After decades of dazzling audiences across Hollywood and Europe, stepping from grand film sets to glittering red carpets, Deborah Kerr chose to live her final years far from the flashing lights. She settled into the quiet beauty of the English countryside, trading fame for peace, glamour for stillness. Surrounded by calm and nature, she faced the toughest battle of her life, complications from Parkinson's disease, a slow and unforgiving condition that gradually limited her once graceful movements. Like every challenge she ever faced, she met it with quiet courage and unshakable dignity. Those close to her said she never complained. She fought to keep her independence, to hold on to that poise that had defined her, both on and off screen. Even as Parkinson's changed her daily life, she handled it with the same composure that had made her such a captivating force in cinema. Nothing could take away the spirit that made her unforgettable. Though she eventually withdrew from public life, the world never forgot her. Film historians, fellow actors, and generations of fans continued to celebrate her brilliance, her elegance, and her emotional depth. Her illness may have slowed her body, but it never touched her legacy. If anything, it made her story even more powerful. The contrast between her timeless screen presence and the vulnerability she faced with such grace was breathtaking. Even as the years passed, Deborah Kerr's name stayed golden. Her artistry, her humanity, and her strength still inspire anyone who loves true cinema. She wasn't just a movie star, she was an icon who redefined what grace under pressure really meant. And now it's your turn. What's your favorite Deborah Kerr film? Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that uncover the real lives behind Hollywood's greatest legends.